Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Welcome to another episode in the 5th season of our debut Spotlight series, where we shine a light on the freshest authors and their work. Today, the spotlight is on Sarah Harman and her debut novel, All the Other Mothers Hate Me. Sarah is an American author living in London. She's a graduate of Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Prior to working on her novel, Sarah was a broadcast journalist and news anchor, reporting on air for Today, Nightly News and MSNBC, and as a foreign correspondent for NBC News. Her debut novel, All the Other Mothers Hate Me, won the Lucy Cavendish Fiction Prize in 2023 and is out tomorrow and published by Fourth Estate in the UK and Putnam in the US. Welcome, Sarah, to A Pair of Bookends.
Hannah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to chat to you. I spent the weekend absolutely hoovering up your book, so I am really excited to get to dive into it. But before we get onto your book, I have to ask you the best question, which is, what are you currently reading?
Okay, I'm very excited to answer this because something has started to happen to me which I didn't know existed, which is once you become an author, publishers and agents start sending you advanced reader copies of books that haven't come out yet, which is like so cool and so exciting. And I've just started getting those fat envelopes in the mail. So I've just started reading Fran Littlewood's new one, The Favorite. This is coming out in June.
I think this is on my TBR. It
Yeah.
looks amazing.
I've just started it, but it's really good. And she wrote Amazing Grace Adams, which probably some of your listeners have read.
Yes.
And it's about a dad who accidentally lets slip that one of his 3 daughters is his favorite, which I just think is a hilarious premise. And yeah, so that's what I'm reading.
Very much so. You're also at an advantage because you're being published in the UK and the US, and I imagine that you're going to get your hands on some US copies that maybe UK readers won't get their hands on for a while, so
Yeah, it's one of the rare perks of being an author. It's been really cool and exciting.
yeah, I can imagine. Let's get on to your book. Now, before we actually get into it, I want to ask about your journey as an author, as a debut author. And in the acknowledgements of your book, you mention that this novel wouldn't exist without your plan A failing. Now, I don't know what your plan A was, but could you talk about how this book grew from failure and how your journey has been into having your debut novel published?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, my plan A was to be a broadcast journalist like forever. And that was my career. And I basically like burnt out and was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. What am I going to do? And I was an English major at university, and I always had sort of dreamed of writing a novel, but it was the kind of thing I told myself, well, I'll do that when I have time. I don't have time now. And suddenly I was like unemployed and had a lot of time on my hands. So I thought, okay, I'm going to actually have to try and do this. And honestly, it was kind of scary because when you have this thing that you like put on a pedestal as your dream, it's almost safer to like not try and do it, because what if you do it and you suck or you fail, and then what do you dream about? So it was in a way like kind of hard to let go of this dream and try and like let it stop being a dream and try and make it a goal. But I decided I would never be able to live with myself if I didn't try. And so I gave myself a year, and spoiler alert, it took a lot longer than a year. But yeah, I got to work, and I think as a journalist, like I was used to working on a deadline, and I knew that like to finish a novel, you can't only write when you feel inspired. Like you have to sort of treat it like a job. And so that's what I really tried to do. And now it's like being published, which is so gratifying and amazing. And it never would have happened if I hadn't lost my job.
Well, I mean, thank God you lost your job, because this amazing book is out in the world. Well, it is going to be out in the world tomorrow, which is, yeah, the day after this episode lands. We are still, I think, a couple of weeks out from it being out.
10th of April, yeah.
Yes, in the UK. Is it the same in the US?
It just came out in the US.
Oh my goodness. So you're kind of, okay, that's really exciting. Do you kind of know what the vibe is in the US yet, or you still kind of figuring that out?
So a lot of people that I went to college with have emailed me out of the blue and been like, I think I saw your book.
Oh my God.
So that's been really fun. And like, you know, my family obviously is really
Of
excited. And
course.
every time they see it at the airport, it sends me a picture, and that's been really fun. But it's kind of strange because it's out in the world, but I'm not there. So I've just
Yeah.
told myself like I live in London, obviously the UK launch is going to be like the launch where I like pop the champagne and celebrate because then I can actually go to Waterstones or an independent bookshop and see it. And I think that's when it feels real.
Yeah, that's going to be so exciting for you. And you won the Lucy Cavendish Fiction Prize, which is so incredible. Did you ever kind of expect any of that to happen?
No, oh my gosh, no. So the Lucy Cavendish Prize was for like an early manuscript. So it was like it was in 2023 and they try and like promote books before they get published, try and help you get attention as a aspiring author, which is so valuable. And at the point when I won, I was like just in struggle city with that manuscript and like, oh my God, what am I doing? And when you're writing like a debut novel, no one is like waiting for it. Like no one wants it, right? You're just like creating this thing that you then have to force on the world.
Mm,
And it was so validating to have like actual writers and judges be like, oh, we see what you're trying to do here. And it really gave me the motivation to keep going. So I was a little bit skeptical of literary contests before, but now I tell my friends who are aspiring writers, as long as it's like reputable and you're not paying an insane amount of money to
yeah.
enter, you should do it because I think it's good to practice putting your work out there. Part
Mm,
of being published is like accepting that people are going to interpret this maybe differently to how you meant it, and they're going to come to it with their own experiences. And you have to sort of exercise that muscle of getting used to like putting it out and letting it live its own little life in the world. And the Lucy Cavendish contest really changed everything for me. Like all of a sudden I had agents reaching out to me,
oh
which is like
gosh.
not the normal thing. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
because normally as a debut author, I mean, I have so many friends who are going through this right now. You're like beating down a door that doesn't really want to open. So yeah, contests can be really, really life-changing.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge achievement to win as well. I mean, it's a huge achievement to submit it in the first place, but it's incredible to have won that. And yeah, you're right. I think as a creative, you get so many kind of knockbacks and rejections. And I've mentioned on the podcast before that I'm an actor, and I'm also working on my debut novel at the moment. And kind of putting yourself out there is really scary. But obviously, it's an amazing thing to do, and it feels like you need to let yourself have those small wins of even just submitting something.
100%.
Before you've even won anything, it's an achievement to
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. And I mean, first of all, as an actor, I don't know how you guys do it because like these castings where you're just getting rejected. And I think it's even harder to separate like yourself from your work. Like
Mm,
I've really tried to take the line of like, you cannot like this book and you can still like me. Like I'm not the book.
yeah.
I think it's even harder when you're an actor. Like that requires so much just mental fortitude and thick skin. So well done. You're well positioned to be a novelist because you're
Thank you.
already the rejection. And the
Um,
other thing I'll say is like even when you like win a contest or you get a publishing deal, the rejection like never ends. There are 1,000 tiny rejections every day. It's part of being an artist and you just have to like lean into it and
yeah.
accept it, not internalize it. And that's been a really kind of important learning experience for me that like the rejection never ends. You're
Yeah.
always getting rejected from
Yeah.
something.
I
So
think there's always that feeling of like, as a creative, there's such weird industries, and you kind of are always panicking that like you're not going to work again, or like something else
yeah.
isn't going to succeed. So it's like this never-ending treadmill. But we're not going to be depressed about that because you've had
No,
success.
we're
You're
going to
currently,
celebrate the little
yes,
victories.
we're going to celebrate the fact that your debut novel is about to be out in the world, and it's out in the US, but it's about to be out in the UK. Very exciting stuff. Could you tell the listeners what All the Other Mothers Hate Me is about?
Yes, of course. So All the Other Mothers Hate Me is about a washed up girl band singer named Florence Grimes. She's 31 years old. She's never gotten over almost becoming famous. And she's, when we meet her, kind of slumming around West London, spending her dwindling royalty checks on elaborate nail art and not much else, until the day a boy at her 10-year-old son's posh private school mysteriously vanishes on a class trip and her own son becomes a suspect. And then Florence is forced to try and play detective and investigate what happened to this kid, not because she cares about what happens to him per se, but because her own son is becoming the main suspect and is the subject of a huge investigation. So that's the elevator pitch. It's kind of
Amazing. I mean, it's such a great concept. And I mean, even just the prologue, I think, is like, I don't know, like less than 2 pages long. And already you just had me hooked. It was so great, and
Thank
this is
you.
such a funny book. It's so well observed as well. It's such a funny look at motherhood, and I think as well what we've just been speaking about somebody that is a creative or an artist and is trying to navigate that industry or trying to, make that work for themselves, and it's not quite worked out, and how you deal with that and figuring out your place in the world. And I want to talk about motherhood for now, because there's so much to talk about, but I wanted to know what interested you in writing about motherhood, and specifically kind of zooming in on the sort of competitive or comparison culture that exists between mums.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the thing is for a character like Florence, who's very cynical and sarcastic, her son is the one area where she cannot say like, oh, whatever. This, it's the one thing she actually cares about. I think as a novelist, you're always thinking about stakes. What are the stakes here? Like, why should a reader care? And, when something is going on with your kid, like you care. So I thought putting her in a position where she is forced out of her sort of malaise and has to take action and do something that she would otherwise absolutely never do would be interesting.
Mm,
And I live in West London. I'm up, like you can hear I'm American. Like I'm very much an outsider here. I've heard and seen some things at the school gates that I thought were ripe for exploration. Some of my favorite like media at the moment are things like Succession or White Lotus, which are just sort of like a
so good.
a little scathing social commentary on the elite. And I thought, well, what about the elite all around me? And I wanted to try and weave that into the book. As you mentioned, it's also a story about failure and what happens when your life doesn't look like everybody else's or like you thought it would when you were younger. But for me, it was also really important that this be a mystery. I feel
Yes.
like mystery is just such an interesting like puzzle for our brains. And I wanted
Hmm.
to give the readers like a little treat where there's something to sort of really sink your teeth into. And it's not just like, there's a lot of great books that are like messy female protagonists, but I wanted something with stakes and where you felt like, yeah, like stuff happens in this book. And it's not just like, will they or won't they? Not to knock a romance novel. That's just, that wasn't where my interest was.
No, but I mean, it's such a kind of cool blend of genres because it feels like literary fiction, but it also feels like it's got those mystery thriller elements to it. And I just thought that was a really nice blend of the two. I'm a big literary fiction fan, but like I said, I was completely hooked by this. What kind of books do you gravitate towards as a reader? Is it both of those genres? Is it one of them?
Yeah, I think I probably read more literary fiction than thrillers, but I do love like a good thriller. I mean when I was like obsessed with Gone Girl when it came out,
Yeah,
that book is so good. I mean all of her books are good. Sharp Objects is great.
I
She's
loved
just like
Sharp Objects.
she's a master. And yeah, so I love a thriller that's sort of like a little bit elevated and a little bit of a social commentary
Yes.
or like that. I love it when people use a thriller as sort of a vehicle to make a social commentary that
Mm,
otherwise would feel like a little bit too heavy-handed, maybe.
yeah.
But I also love like a first-person narrator. I love Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason.
That
It's
is
one of
literally one of my all-time faves. So
the
good.
when I read that, I became like evangelical about it and was handing out copies to
Me
people
too.
who were like, I don't really read books. And I was like, you just take this. It's so funny. Like, way funnier than a book about serious mental illness has any right to be. She's
100%.
amazing. I love that book. Yeah, I love Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. I love
So
that,
good.
like a quirky first person narrator. I love that she has a secret that you don't really find out, but then when you find out, you're like, oh my God, the clues were there the whole time. I am desperate for Gail Honeyman to write something else. Like, I
Yes, we're waiting.
we're waiting, Gail. No pressure. Like
No
now that
pressure,
I'm
but
in the
please.
position of being a writer, I do understand. Like, oh my God, like to have a debut that's as successful as this was must be a tremendous amount of pressure. But she's brilliant, and that book is so good. Yeah. So I mean, to come back to this, I wanted to combine those two things, like a thriller slash mystery for people who don't necessarily read in that genre. And it's interesting to see like the different ways that the book has been marketed in the States has definitely leaned more into like the thriller cover.
Interesting.
And then in the UK, Fourth Estate has leaned much more into that like literary fiction
Yeah.
marketing vibe. And I mean, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but like we all do. I do too. Like And these books in the UK and the US, they look so different. And I find that endlessly fascinating.
It is fascinating. I was very lucky I got sent a proof and I am obsessed with this proof. I just think it's so gorgeous.
Isn't that so cool? They did a really good job.
It is
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I'm completely obsessed with that. But like you said, don't judge a book by its cover, but this book is great. So,
Yeah.
both things can be true. I want to talk about Florence because I think she's such a great protagonist. And, some of the books that you've just been mentioning there are bursting with brilliant protagonists. And, like the protagonist in Sorrow and Bliss and in Eleanor Oliphant, she's really complex, she's really layered, and she's also really dramatic and spiky. And I loved being inside her brain and the sort of thoughts that she'd have. Very, very funny. And I laughed so much. And there's a moment in the book that I'm thinking of in particular where she thinks she can't find her son. And she says that if she doesn't find him, there is no reason for me to continue occupying this earth. And I love that level of dramatic. I feel that in my soul. Like, that is me. I am that dramatic. And I wondered what the inspiration was for her.
Oh gosh. When I was writing, Florence was such a fun character to write because she is kind of bad. And I thought a lot about like female pop stars and celebrities from like the early aughts. So like Lindsay, Britney,
Yeah.
just the way those women were sort of treated by the mainstream media and the press and by all of us, consuming that content and all of the like upskirting and like paparazzi chasing them and just they were treated really poorly actually. And I tried to think about like what would it be like to come of age in that sort of moment and have that sort of experience and then have all of it ripped away from you and you're just adrift and the thing that you've been told is like valuable about yourself you don't have anymore and you're trying to kind of find your way. It probably would make you like a little cynical and a little
100%.
dramatic and a little bit, people have said like, oh, she's an unlikable narrator. I mean, Hamlet's unlikable, right? Like I think that we hold women to a higher standard sometimes. But yeah, like she's not necessarily someone you would choose to have as your very best friend, but I do think it's amusing to spend time in her head. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about was like, is it possible to be a bad person and a good mother? Or are those two things mutually exclusive? And I think by the end of the book, readers will make up their own mind about that question, but that was sort of the guiding thought going into the book. Can you reject a lot of the social conventions, right? Like not pack a healthy lunch, not join the PTA, not organize play dates, and actually be like hungover at school drop off, but really love your kid? Is that enough? I don't know.
I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say she's an unlikable character. I absolutely loved her. I mean, she makes questionable choices, let's be honest, but
Yes.
she isn't unlikable. I think she's very lovable, in fact, and very, very funny, like I said. I just had one question about her, and that is why does she eat ice cream with a fork? That is an issue for me. There's a moment where she's eating mint chocolate chip ice cream, and it says she's eating it with a fork, and I was like,
Yeah.
why?
In my
Red
mind,
flag.
Florence is not a person who has like a full set of clean dishes at any given time. So what this is like, it's really funny that you raised that. The copy editor in the UK also flagged that and was like, is this a type? I had a very thorough copy editing. And I was like, no, I envision her eating that with a fork because she's just like, she's a
So
mess, right? Like she
chaotic.
does not have a full set of clean dishes. She has like two glasses she stole from a bar and like some leftover picnic flatware. So, yeah. Also, I don't know if you do this, but if you eat ice cream in those like single serving containers when it's too cold, you can't really get at it with this. I'm ashamed to know this, but like if you take it directly out of the freezer without letting it sit on the counter for a minute, you almost like can't get into it with a spoon and you need the sharpness of the fork to get the really frozen bits out. So that was what was in my mind. I'm sorry.
So be honest, Sarah, have you been eating ice cream with a fork? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
So much ice cream.
I'm disturbed by the fork.
I was unemployed when I wrote this. I was just eating
Okay,
ice cream while I typed and,
fair enough. I wanted to speak about, obviously we've spoken about a little bit about motherhood, but I was talking to an author recently and we were talking about it was something relevant to their novel, and we were talking about the patterns that are kind of recreated, how a mother treats their child or a father treats their child, and how those patterns are maybe recreated and passed down to their children. And I
Mm.
was really fascinated by the relationship that Florence had with her mother and how her mother quite openly favoured Florence's sister Brooke. It is Florence, isn't it? I keep panicking that I'm saying the wrong name.
No, no, it's
It is
Florence.
Florence.
I would
um,
tell you.
okay, good. Yeah, and how her mother quite openly favoured her sister Brooke. Did you feel that Florence's relationship with her mother inspired how she parents?
Oh gosh, that's such an interesting question. I think it must, right? I think the way that you're parented is, of course, it inspires how you parent, whether it's you reacting against that or trying to recreate what you enjoyed. I think it's so different for Florence because she only has one child. Maybe she only has one child because she felt so inferior compared to her sister. It's an interesting question.
Interesting,
Was
yeah.
it circumstances or decision? On the other hand, I don't think that Florence's experience of motherhood was such that she felt compelled to immediately recreate it. Yeah, I mean, with Florence, I wanted to. Everybody has like a backstory and parents, and I tried to keep her family in the background, but give sort of hints of what was going on, and that the reader can then bring to that however much they want. Because there's also a lot going on in the plot, and at some point as an author, you have to decide like how much backstory do we really have time for here? We have a whole kidnapping plot to get through. So the snippets of Florence's mom and her family are, I guess, somewhat sparse, but I'm really
Mm.
pleased that you were able to draw the connection between how she was parented and how she's ended up
Yeah, I
parented.
mean, it is like, you don't delve into her backstory in terms of her family. It's not completely detailed, but I think you give enough sort of crumbs for us to follow to
Yeah.
kind of be like, oh, I can imagine what this upbringing was like. I mean, I especially loved when her mum tells her and her sister that they're moving to the UK and she like launches a cake at a wall, which just leans into how dramatic she is as a character from from being a child.
Yeah, yeah. Some of it's inborn, right? Like you come out. I mean, I have two kids, and I'm convinced that they just come out with their personalities, and you can sort of embrace it or not. But like you come out with a personality. Like there's some elements of who you are that are just inborn, and it's kind of your job as a parent to nurture what you get rather than be
Mm.
like, I'm gonna make you really sporty or whatever, because you can't.
No, no. I want to speak about Jenny because
Yeah.
I loved their little dynamic duo, and there are not many mums that I don't think any of the other mums she kind of takes to. As the title says, all the other mothers hate me. There's not really any bonding going on between the rest of them, but there is a bond that is made between her and another mum at the school called Jenny, and they sort of become detectives together and try and investigate this missing child. Could you talk a bit about their friendship and what influenced it?
Yeah, Jenny was such a fun character to write, and one of my regrets was having chosen to write this whole thing in the first person in the present tense was that I wasn't able to give more Jenny, and because I think she's such a great character and she's more than just a foil for Florence. I mean, Jenny is this hard-charging type A corporate lawyer. She's sort of like she wouldn't call herself a girl boss, but she kind of is. And she's been really successful in her career. She's had her kids on her own as an intentional single mom by choice with IVF, and she's just crushing it at work. But even though she's been so successful, she's still kind of lonely. And I thought it was so interesting to look at these two women who have had such different trajectories and such different life experiences and careers, and yet they're both kind of lonely. Like why is that? It's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't as a woman. And I also was thinking about how, I've lived overseas my entire adult life, not just in the UK, but in Europe. And there is a weird thing where, like, when you are with other Americans, and maybe you've experienced this, like traveling, even if you don't like them, you end up just like thrown together a
Gravitating,
lot
yeah.
and you have a lot in common. And you're both like, wait, when are our US taxes that have to be filed? And like, you have all this like life admin in common. And so you end up just like talking to these people that you otherwise like wouldn't be friends with. And also, especially if you're joining like a new school that's kind of cliquey, everybody already has their friends. So if you're new, you like kind of have to take what you can get. And so I wanted to put them in a position where they start out both kind of needing something from each other. Florence needs an adult who's like smart and organized like Jenny to help her investigate and talk to various people. And Jenny's really lonely and she's worried about her kids making friends and she wants the social connection and she frankly hasn't been around long enough to realize what a pariah Florence is. So she's like, well, you'll do. And Jenny's a pragmatist, right? Like she's pragmatic where Florence is incredibly dramatic and over the top. And I think over the course of the novel, that friendship is something that helps Florence sort of redeem herself and learn to trust people again. And I don't want to like oversell her transformation, but but
She sort of
change over the course.
stabilizes her a little bit as well, doesn't she? She kind of
Yeah.
grounds her a little. I don't know how best to
Yeah.
describe it, but yeah, I
They're good
think
for each other. I think everybody probably has had the experience of having a friend where it's like, oh, we're such opposites, and yet somehow it works. Opposites attract for a reason sometimes. And I think by the end of the book, you can see what each of them is getting out of that.
yeah, for sure. And there is that kind of opposition between those two characters. Jenny, like you said, is very much this kind of girl boss. She's really got it together. And Florence, as we've already said, is quite chaotic, quite messy. We've briefly mentioned that she used to be in a girl band and
Mhm.
how that part of her life, we find out through the book how that part of her life fell apart. And I think she kind of struggles with how different her life is to her sister Brooke.
Yeah.
And the sort of expectations that are kind of placed on her, every time that they kind of interact, you have these moments of there being this kind of, I don't know, like power imbalance. Maybe not Brooke intentionally thinking that she's better than Florence, but I think there's that sort of, why have you not got it together? Like,
Yeah.
look at me and my life. Like, I'm getting married. I've got like my life sorted and yours isn't. And there's that kind of, it's quite typical of sisters. But you wrote in the book about the struggles that Florence faces, and I loved this line. She doesn't understand how devastating it is for an artist to have their dreams snatched away, to crave a stage and be unable to conjure one. And I just absolutely love that. I think it just really resonated with me as a creative. Because you talk about Florence's struggles as an artist in the book, and how much of your own creative journey sort of influenced her experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely bits of me in every character, and I would say like Florence's desire to be seen is something that I definitely relate to, and I think it's hard if you have that because there's not really a way, there's no substitute, right? And if you don't feel that, if you're really just happy, like working a good job in the accounting department and coming home and watching TV that someone else made and eating, a nice meal and going to bed, like you can't really explain to someone what it's like to
Mm,
be creatively unfulfilled. It's not something that they feel, I eat almost exclusively like prepackaged M&S food for dinner, and I don't care,
yeah.
like but someone who's a chef would be like, "Oh my God, you're missing out on this whole world, and how can you do that?" And I think that's sort of the fundamental misunderstanding between Florence and her sister is like her sister is like, "It's so easy to just do the right thing and be
Hmm.
responsible." And for Florence, it's not because so many creative fields, success is slightly beyond your own control. And
Exactly.
and that's very frustrating, right? Like you could work very hard and pass your CPA exam and
Hmm.
become an accountant, but you can work really hard to be an artist and still fail. And that
Yeah.
happens every day to really talented people. And it's just one of the cruel things about striving for creative success, I think. You're not,
Absolutely. And it feels like you're so misunderstood all the time. And having those expectations placed on you is so difficult. Like I said before, like I act, I write, I do this podcast, and I work multiple jobs, as like money makers.
yeah,
And, I'll still have like family members coming to me at parties and being like, "Oh, you're still doing that?" Like, and I'm like, "Yes, I'm still doing this. What do you mean?" Like it's such a strange thing, and you wouldn't have somebody that was kind of applying for jobs in, like you said, in like accounting or something else, being asked like, "Oh, are you still doing that?"
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's so strange. But yeah, I really loved reading about those kind of frustrations that she has.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is part of it is Florence realizing, like, look, she was in a girl band, nobody took that seriously, but she is a creative and she hasn't given herself permission to do anything else creative, right? She's making
Yeah.
balloon arches and selling them to these rich moms just, to make money because she can't like function in a
Mm,
normal office environment, but it's not satisfying. And she's never like ever even explored what would she like dreams of a comeback, but she's taken absolutely zero steps towards having one in terms of like, creating a YouTube channel or
mm.
like putting out some new material. She's done nothing. All she does is like daydream. And so I think, there's a
It's
little bit of
different.
like, yeah, I think you're hustling and Florence is
Maybe not.
languishing.
Well, there were moments where I felt her frustrations, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, she's often kind of pouring herself a drink, or like, she's eating her ice cream with a fork, and yeah,
Yeah.
she's not really
Much
doing the
much
hustle when you think
darker.
about it. Yeah, fair. There is a really great piece of writing, and I mean the book is fantastic, obviously, but there is a piece of writing in the book that I just absolutely adored, and it's sort of exploring female rage. And you wrote, I was never a feminist icon. That day in the conference room, I was just angry. Show me a woman who isn't, though. Show me a woman who, beneath all the eyelash extensions and hair dye and loose beach waves, isn't fucking boiling with rage at the sheer injustice of it all. And I'll show you someone who's not paying close enough attention. And I just thought that was absolutely chef's kiss. Like, just
Aw, thank you.
amazing. And I think that will just resonate with so many women. And I don't have a question about that. I just thought it was great.
Oh, thank you. I'm both pleased that it resonated with you and sorry that it resonated with you because that sucks. But
Yeah.
the world we live in, and so thank you.
100%. It's bullshit. Yeah. There is a kind of small storyline running through the book of a serial killer who is referred to as the Shepherd's Bush Strangler, which I was very intrigued by. Where did this character come from? Is it like a love of true crime? Yeah, I'd love to know about him. Him, her, who knows?
Yeah, so it is, I mean, no spoilers, but it's a man. It's always a man. Come on.
Yeah.
Look, I was a journalist for like 15 years, and something that's like intrigued me is the way that like the British tabloids will like give someone, or maybe it's not even fair to pin this on the British tabloids, but like lots of media will like give someone a name, and then it's like we're all following them as if they're like the Queen or a baseball player, and it's like, well, what's he gotten up to now? And yeah, so I guess that was just a little bit of a stab at that. There is not, to my knowledge, a shepherd's bush strangler, but
It
there
could
could
be.
be. Not wishing that into existence.
No, please, no. We've had enough.
Come
Let's
on,
be real.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's be real. And I think I'm like fired up about this because I just watched that Gabby Petito
Oh my
documentary on
God,
Netflix. Have you seen
yes.
that?
I've not
And
seen it.
like,
No, I don't know if I can. It's yeah,
yeah, it
I've read
makes you
about it.
really, really angry. And they have like all this footage of the cops pulling her over after a domestic dispute with her partner and then like arresting her and taking her partner to a domestic violence hotel after she's covered in bruises. And it's just like maybe this narrative of anyone can be a victim has gotten like a little bit off the rails.
No.
So that's my little rant for the day.
Yeah, and it, rightfully so. And there is, like I mean, the quote that I read before, like there is that kind of rage bubbling away in the book, and I really love that you've kind of engaged with that. There's so much to be angry about as a woman, and we're not allowed to be angry, and I love leaning into that, and I love it when we have characters that lean into that. I feel like Fleabag is the kind of, I mean, there's been loads, but
I
Fleabag was a
love
great one.
Fleabag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he
great.
was such a good character.
Such a good character. But yeah, I love this book. Yeah,
Thank you so
I can't recommend it enough. And I want to ask about the title, All the Other Mothers Hate Me, because I am not a mum yet. I've just turned 30 and I want to be a mum at some
much.
point. I hope for it. So we shall see how that journey goes. But I hear from a lot of my friends that have become mothers about this sort of cult-like thing that happens with motherhood, and the stress of motherhood, and like you said in the book, there's the kind of congregating mothers at the school gates who are like, oh well, I run the PTA, and like the sort of expectations placed on like every woman to be like the best mother out there. So yeah, where did the title come from?
So, the book was fully finished, and I had an agent, and I had a different title, which I'll just say, I was like, this is a great title. And my agent, God bless her, very gently was like, "We need to change the title." And it was, it was a process. And to her credit, I love you, Helly. Like she really gently sort of held my hand through like very like oh my God, so many rounds of brainstorming to find the right title.
Mhm.
And when I came up with this, we were both like, "Oh my God, that's it. That's like we knew."
That's
And
the
we had
one.
also been through like between my original bad title and this title were like about 100 other, but much like we were talking about, don't judge a book by its cover, but haha, we all do. I think titles are important. Like
Yeah.
they set a reader's expectation. There's so much content out there, and what I like about this title is I think it sets the tone for the book, and so I am really pleased that we ended up with this and not Dirtbag Detective, which was
Detective, no.
my original title. And like so many
Stop,
people
Sarah, no.
tried to tell me that was like friends were like, I don't know if that really, and I was like, I don't know. I just thought like the word dirtbag was really
It's kind
funny.
of
And
iconic, yeah.
yeah, whatever. I mean, sometimes you're just not the best like arbiter of your own ideas. And
And
yeah,
that's
so thank you,
okay.
Kelly, for telling me to change the title. And I think I credit her in the acknowledgments with telling me
Yes,
how to change the title. And she was right. So,
it's a
when you
great
write
title.
books,
I believe that you are also working with the team behind The Bear on an adaptation of the book. I imagine that there's a lot of this under wraps, but I just wanted to ask how that's going.
oh, I don't know if it's under wrap. I'm happy to talk about
Okay, please, what can you tell us?
well, first of all, they're amazing. Like they're
I
such
mean, The
a
Bear is just so
they're
good.
so talented, but talent and like kindness don't always go together,
Yeah, fair.
especially in creative industries.
Hmm.
They're both really talented and smart and also just have been a dream to work with. And I think there is like a fair amount of wariness around authors, especially debut authors,
Hmm.
wanting to adapt their own material. And I had a lot of conversations with people where they were like, "We'll pair you with a more experienced writer." And I was like, and these guys were just like, "We believe in you. We're going to support you. You're going to write it." And I was like, sold. And
Oh
they
my
have lived
God.
up to that promise. It's been amazing. I mean, it's been hard, right?
Of
Like there's a
course, yeah.
learning curve, a lot of work. But as creative partners, like, oh my God, they've been great. And yeah, so hopefully there'll be something coming to TV screens on Disney. I guess it's Disney Plus very soon. But these things take time, and
They
there's
do.
writing a book is such a like solitary endeavor, especially in the beginning before you have like an editor and copy editors and agents, and it's just you and the page. And this is so much more of a team project, which has been really fun to have like people around again and not be alone. So I've enjoyed it, and I would encourage other authors if you're interested in adapting your own material,
I love that so much.
partner and do it.
Such an incredible achievement as well. Like, congratulations. It's your debut novel. It won the Lucy Cavendish Fiction Prize. It's now being adapted by that incredible team. Like, just huge,
Dream come
huge.
true. Dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the casting done for it? Yeah, is no.
And I am not in charge of casting.
No.
I wrote the pilot, and like someone who's a casting director is going to cast this. But I, being a debut author, would just love to see like maybe a younger or like unknown actress get a role and get a chance, because I feel like this book has really given me like a chance. And as a debut author, I'd love to like pass that on to someone else. But that's going
Hi,
to be
I am
100%
available
Disney's
whenever you
decision.
need me, Sarah. So just
How's your American accent?
I don't know. It's probably like really general and shit. So
I have like such a tin ear. I cannot tell where anyone is from. And living in the UK, I'm constantly just embarrassing myself all the time, asking people like, "Oh, are you Scottish?" And they're like, "I'm from South
no.
Africa." You absolute idiot.
So good.
Yeah,
No, I literally can't wait for this to come out, and I
thank
will be
you.
giving my acting agent a nudge and saying, please keep an eye out for any castings to do with
Do
this.
it.
But yeah, it sounds amazing, and to have that team as well, what they created with the bear was just incredible. So I can't wait for that, and I'm so pleased that you have been able to adapt it yourself. I think that's amazing. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Dream come
bef
true.
I can imagine. Before I let you go, I do want to end by asking for a recommendation. So that can be anything. It can be books, TV, film, anything goes for this one.
Oh gosh. Okay.
No pressure.
Okay, if you haven't read Claire Kilroy's novel Soldier
I
Sailor,
haven't yet.
it's okay. You might want to like you if you're thinking about becoming a parent, maybe save it
Hang
for
fire. Okay.
after.
That tells me everything.
It, it is like the most beautiful, heart-wrenching piece of writing, and I read it. I made the mistake of reading it on an airplane and was just like sobbing in my seat because it's so beautiful, but like so raw. So that's great. So that's definitely on my recommendation list. It's not like, I mean, it's been out for a while, but it's such a good book. It's really worth reading. And then, I mean, I'm listening to an economist podcast called Scam Inc., which is so good. And it's about how people get scammed online. And the president of this bank in Kansas got scammed out of $1 billion. And it really has opened my eyes to how many scams are out there because I thought it's not like these Nigerian princes emailing you like typo riddled emails. It's so sophisticated now, and I had absolutely no idea. And they do a lot of in-depth reporting in Myanmar, talking to trafficked people who end up working in these scam call centers,
Oh my
and
gosh.
just brilliant. And so, as a former journalist, I'm like, oh my God, this is just an amazing piece
That
of work.
sounds great.
Scam Inc. On the opposite end of the spectrum. So read Soldier Sailor, and then once you need to like sober up and stop weeping, listen to Scam Inc.
Oh, amazing recommendations. Thank you so much, Sarah. And where can the listeners find you on social media? And I also believe you've got a newsletter, is that right?
I am trying to start a new one, but I haven't actually written any of it.
It,
This is like my secret shame. Months ago, I was like, oh, I'll start a newsletter before my book comes out. And like, lo and behold, I spend all of my free time on like book podcasts and writing listicles to promote the book. And so I don't have a newsletter, but I'm
fine.
trying to start one. So please sign up. And I promise not to spam you because I'm not a very prolific newsletterer. I'm on Instagram at Sarah Harman Writer.
And
Nothing
you
on
there.
Instagram is real. Don't spend your time on Instagram. I hate to like push a Mark Zuckerberg platform on people, but I
Valid.
am begrudgingly there. And if you're there, come say hi.
And you can also, say hi after you've bought the book, which is out tomorrow. I'll be popping a link in the show notes. And for US listeners, it is already out, so you should already have yourselves a copy. But if not, link in the show notes. Go grab one. Go give Sarah a follow. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. And lastly, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Hannah. It was such a treat.
Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Goodbye.